In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever. I bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted and living Christ, now at the right hand of the Savior as Mahdi. And I bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is that Messiah that we have been waiting for in this day of judgment in which we now live. In their names, I greet my family with greeting words of peace and paradise. Of Assalamu alaikum. And how is everyone this fine January 1st? We're blessed to see another year.
Walaikum salam, sir. Yes, sir. Very blessed.
All right. So we got Brother Ahmad with us. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ahmad.
Wa alaikum salam. Happy New Year. Happy Savior's Day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How's everything out there on the West Coast?
Oh, it's going well here. Let me give you. We're playing catch and we're going through here. So it's a fun time while we listen. And I got on my wife's hat.
I was about to say, brother, what's that about?
It's that type of afternoon here.
Hey, no,
so we're very grateful to be in the new year with all of the believers. Assalamu alaikum.
Islam, you gotta enjoy those moments, brother. The children grow up quick.
Oh, yes, sir. He's gonna be 2 already. So
yeah. Oh, has it been that? Oh, yeah, because when we first started was when sister had the baby.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
See, he's got an arm. He's throwing his basketball around already.
Wow.
Say Allahu Akbar. He usually says that as soon as he hears it. But I don't want to take the time. I'm excited to listen. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Salam, sir. Sister Patricia, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
How are you?
I'm doing well by Allah's grace.
Praise be to
Keeping
Allah.
up, trying to keep up with these lessons.
Hey. I'm trying to keep up myself.
Yes, sir. I'm like, oh my. Almost got behind a little bit, but I caught up.
Yes, ma'am.
So much, Sunday night, Friday night, Saturday, just, it then turning in lessons by the week. Ooh. I ain't even talk about the other stuff I have to deal with my grandchildren. They got things to do, and my 8-year-old, he's in a spelling bee.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave him these these papers, and I called the school. I said, what level should he study? She said, all of them. I said, that's 4,000 words.
Wow.
He got to know them all. You got to go look at them all because you don't know what word's going to be called. So every day we got to take 3 columns, morning and in the evening, go over the words. Because the National Spelling Bee is the 11th of January, inshallah. So I was like, woo, got a busy schedule, but you got to get your balance and, struggle for balance. And I'm not struggling, but I'm balancing.
They say idle mind is the devil's workshop. So we got to keep ourselves busy.
Yeah, I got things in every quarter.
That's how you do it.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's see. We got Sister Naima. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear Sister Naima?
Can you hear me? Walaikum salam, sir, family.
You cut yourself off there. You're what?
I'm well, thank Allah. Thank you for asking.
All right.
A birth anniversary yesterday.
Oh, praise be to Allah.
Yes, sir. So my family, they spoiled me a little bit. So that was a big thing.
Brother Timothy, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Greetings to everyone.
How are you, brother?
I'm fine. Thank Allah. How about yourself?
I'm grateful to see another year. I'm another step closer to retirement.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir.
Well, let's see. Sister Tina, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Lukman and family. How are you?
I'm fine. My tone goes up just hearing your greeting, sister, every time. You have a lot of energy in your greeting.
All praises due to Allah. Hey, I had a wonderful win yesterday, so it's going to be even higher. Yes, yes,
Well, as
yes,
soon as I
yes.
get through all the greetings, you definitely got to share with us.
Yes, sir, I will. And happy birthday anniversary, Sister Naima.
I praise you to Allah. Thank you.
Sister Deborah, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir. Happy Savior's Day, family.
Happy Savior's Day. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
Grateful and thankful.
Yes,
I had
sir.
some overtime to work, and let's see, I did 24 hours on Friday, and then I had 18 hours to do between Saturday and Sunday, and I think we might have had 3 or 4 calls. So it was just some easy money.
Wow. Yeah, nothing like easy money.
You ain't lying. I'll take easy money anytime.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, Brother Wadud, is that the doctor?
Yes, sir, it is. Assalamu alaikum, sir, family.
Salam,
Happy
sir.
Savior's Day.
Happy Savior's Day. Let's see, we got iPhone. Is this the world famous Brother Scott Muhammad from Seed Incorporated? On the
Oh, assalamu alaikum, sir.
iPhone?
You hear
How
me?
are you and the family, brother?
You all right? Oh, man, we sticking the jabbing, ducking the dodging, bobbing, and weaving. How are you and yours doing?
We're doing fine, brother. Everything's fine for the new year so far.
Hold on, my phone is messing up. Let me, I might need to try another connection.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Don't worry, brother. We'll let you back in. Okay. Before we begin, questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, suggestions, corrections, cognitions, or wins before we go forward.
Well, yes, sir. I just want to give you my little win right there.
No, there's no such thing as a little win. It's a win.
Well, it's a big win. It really is. But I want to give you the short version. You know how we don't judge other people, and we're not even qualified to judge ourselves, right? Well, I have been judging myself, and telling myself something, and it was not true. And so I found out that it was not true by reading How to Eat to Live, book 1, where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is telling us that the diseases that we have, all diseases, including social diseases, come from whites, right? And that's on page 72 through 75, reading that in How to Eat to Live, book 1. So in reading that, I remember that my great grandmother was a white Irish woman. So I have that blood in me very close. So they have been telling me for years since I was a child that I was anemic, but I wasn't claiming it, never claimed it. So I've been struggling with sleeping a lot, the sleep god. So I thought I was lazy. I thought I was being lazy, and I couldn't figure it out because I try to do all that I can do, but some things I just couldn't do. So for this whole year, I just been telling myself, and couldn't understand it, So I came to the conclusion that, that it was lazy. So come to find out, after reading that and How to Eat to Live and talking to a relative of mine, they told me that being tired, sleeping a lot is one of the symptoms of being anemic. And so come to find out that that's what it is, and so I've been telling myself a lot, that I've been judging myself, telling myself, oh, you just lazy. I don't understand. How can I be lazy when I be doing all that I can do? But the sleeping a lot is because of low blood, low iron. So I just have to handle that and I'm good. But in finding out that truth about myself, my tone level shot up to 40. I mean, it went through the roof yesterday, through the roof. So my win is that we are not even qualified to judge ourselves, because we can be telling ourselves something about ourselves that's not good, and it's a lie. So we're believing a lie, and that goes against the grain of our thinking. And that can really cause damage. I have been torturing myself. So, so I said, okay, now I know. So now I know what I need to work on. But I have been having more energy since knowing the truth is I just have to deal with the being anemic part. That's it.
Well, I'm definitely going to take note of that, because I know I'm probably my own worst critic as well. So I'm going to take your win and study it. Go ahead, Brother Scott.
I thought it was very interesting that when Sister Tina was critiquing herself, that she used a voice that was different than her own. And it made me think about valences, and wondering who is it that is actually judging Tina. Is it Sister Tina, or is it somebody that she's giving life to in her mind? Because that did not sound. I know Sister Tina pretty well. That ain't sound like Sister Tina. That was almost like a dude or somebody up in here messing with my sister. I want to know who it is. And I want that person to leave my sister alone.
Brother Scott, we're vibing on the same energy, because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, whose valence is that?
Yeah.
But I didn't. That's one of the first things that came to my mind. I was like, who was that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because if you notice her tone when she first comes on, her tone is way up here.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she made that statement, it kind of, what did L. Ron Hubbard call that? The roller coaster?
Oh, wow.
Well, you know what? Maybe it was that I was just trying to calm down, because I have been on a high since coming into that realization of myself. I have been on a high since yesterday, and it was like my niece. That was my niece that told me, well, being sleepy all the time and tired all the time is one of the symptoms of anemia, being anemic. And that was like a straight wire for me, because she knocked out a falsehood that I was thinking about myself with truth. So the voice change might have been me just trying to stay calm and be calm, because I've been repeating this story, since yesterday. And when I think about it, I'm so grateful to Allah for blessing me with that. Because like I said, I have been really thinking that I've just been being lazy. And the ministers say we have to think about how we spend God's time. So who wants to be lazy? When you're thinking about how you spending God's time. So I've been really hard on myself. So I don't know if that's a valence. I have to think about that. But I do know that I'm not the same person that I was yesterday. I do before I got straight wired. I know I'm not the same person.
Let me go ahead and get the applause on that one. Now, it's interesting that you say that, Sister Tina, because last week when I was at work, we got into a conversation at work because, again, COVID is going through the fire department right now. Individuals are catching the COVID and they're out. We had one individual, he caught it for the second time. So we got into a conversation, and he had raised the question about different blood types and something that he had read about. And then I did some studying. Come to find out, when you understand that there's different blood types, there are certain blood types, like you have what's called the universal donor, which is O positive. Individuals with O type blood are less susceptible to contracting the COVID, the RSV and the flu and many other diseases or sicknesses. And then blood types that are like AB and AB. And I think, have you ever heard of those different blood types?
Yes, sir.
Those blood types are more susceptible to contracting the COVID, RSV, and the flu. And when I started reading about the different blood types, my mind went right to weak bone and weak blooded.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about that weak blood,
Mm-hmm.
and that there actually is strong blood and weak blood. It's you have the O family, which is O positive and O negative. Then you got A positive, A negative, B positive, B negative, and then AB positive and negative. And the one is more susceptible. And so what we're seeing is a cycle of individuals, and it seems as though the individuals that got vaccinated are the ones that are getting sick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Something about that blood.
Yeah, and that's why the real straight wire, I think, came from, in fact, I know the real straight wire came from How to Eat to Live, you know, reading what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said about how we got all of these diseases that we got, you know, the diseases, all of them, even social diseases, come from white folks, come from the grafted people. See, so that was a straight wire to me. And then I had to understand how close the white blood is in me. In fact, all of us are mixed, all of us. So I had to understand how close the white grafted blood is in me. You know, my great grandmother, a white Irish woman, you know, that's just the way it is. That's just the truth. So then I had to grasp the fact that I've been diagnosed as being anemic all my life, but I just didn't want to claim it, you know, but I had to claim it after realizing that that's just an actual fact. It's an actual fact, you know? And so now I know what to do, you know? And I just need to work on getting my iron up. And that's just an actual fact. So that's a straight wire for me. Mm-hmm. So that's why my tone level went through the roof and is still through the roof. I'm not the same person that I was before, you know, that How to Eat to Live straight wire and my niece. How to
Eat to Live straight wire. I love it.
How to Live straight wire and my niece pointing out to me the symptom, the truth that being tired is a symptom of anemia. Yes, that's just the truth. Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yes, sir. So that's my win, and I'm sticking to it.
And then you're sticking to it.
Sticking to it.
All right. Sister Ania, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you?
I'm great, praise Allah. What have I missed?
Oh, we were just going through cognitions and wins. We haven't started the subject matter. I'm just, we got to listen to other people's wins so we can get the tone up. We want the tone to be, we want to circulate the theta, as you could say. We want to get the theta going and get all the information going.
Okay, I see.
How's our brother Wahid doing?
Excellent, fine. We attended a wedding today after the mosque. Mm-hmm. Two believers here got married, and that was beautiful. And I'm late to class because I got a call from a friend I have. I'm very interested in genealogy, and so a friend of mine from the islands called me, and I hated to get off the call because normally we're on the phone for hours sharing information. Mm-hmm. But I told him that I could not miss this class, so I had to go.
Oh.
So, but I, always enjoy talking to him. We're trying to piece together the bits and pieces of the Montserrat genealogy tree, because mm-hmm. most people from our island are related. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. All right. It seems like the energy is at a very good level. We hope that we get it a little higher before we end today. Let me go ahead and get yes, Sister Patricia.
Yes, sir. You know, my tone scale been up really since the 25th. Um, I was asked to help serve hot meals to the ones in needs. And I didn't know that many people there, but the one who asked me to help and my grandsons and their children. But it was probably about 15, 15 people. And when we were all in the kitchen, you know, everybody was in a good mood. It seemed like it was Christmas. It was Christmas Day, as they say, quote unquote, the 25th of December. And it felt like we were family, you know, getting together. Fake to say it like this, like getting together for the holiday, but we was there really working, you know, to help serve the food. And uh, we just had some good energy in the kitchen. You be laughing and talking about things, and I was like, wow, wasn't expecting that. You know, when you expecting to be so robotic, you know, serve next, you know, but it was like we were in the kitchen. Even the people who was coming, their spirits was even up. They were smiling and saying thank you. And then a couple of days ago, I was in the store and I had checked out, and I was standing there waiting on my grandson to go pick up an item that I forgot. And so this lady, she had to be in her late 60s, 70, Caucasian. She started walking up towards me, and I said, okay, what's happening? And she said, here, take these home and enjoy them. And there were some flowers. I was like, oh, it kind of, you know, shocked me a little bit because I wasn't expecting that. And so my grandson seen the flowers in my cart, and he said, "You went to go get some flowers? Why we went?" I said, "No." I said, "Someone gave them to me," and they like, "You didn't know that person?" I said, "No." And so he said, "Well, they look like they did," and I said, "Well, no." Well, I looked at them; they kind of welted a little bit. I brought them home, and they just perked up, and the flowers is like really blooming now. They just like, and I sit there and I said, "Wow, you know, Allah is a merciful God. He knew He wanted to keep that tone up for me from the 25th, because this just happened like the right around the 28th. And I said, I know that lady when she left her house that day, she did not think of me. You know, she didn't have nothing about me. She didn't have me on her mind. But Allah knew, I'm gonna send someone to you. You're on a good line right now. Your line is straight. You're doing good. This, you know, and I'm gonna keep it up. And that happened, you know. And then yesterday I went to a sister. She had a birth anniversary, and you know, I was the first one there. I thought I was late, but we were really in. It was just a small thing. We did a vision board, and it was really nice. So my tone scale was just still up. I turned in my lesson, and I said, okay, let's see what's gonna happen. 100% on the first turn. I was like, oh, this is doing real good. So I just the tone scale been up. I've just been feeling real good. So all praises due. Like last night, they tried to get my tone scale down because they were partying next door to me till 6 this morning. And I got up. It was coming out of the restroom, and they was right at the window and shot up in the air. And it kind of startled me because, you know, the way it happened, I said, that's not fireworks, you know, because they usually do it. I guess in Georgia, they do fireworks. But that wasn't the fireworks. That sounded like a pistol. But that what kind of bothered me was because you was right by my window, you know. And I went into my grandson's room and see if everything, did that come through the window? But, you know, I sit up for a minute and I brought that tone scale back up because I got a little angry. You know, how, you know, you got all that backyard back there. Why you didn't go in the back of the house? Why you right there on the side? Because my bedroom and my grandson's bedroom was right next to their home next door. So I was kind of a little upset, but I didn't let it take it all the way down. I just like, okay, I'm gonna talk to them next time I see them. You know, entertain in your backyard or in your house. But 6 o'clock in the morning, good Lord,
Wow.
that's a long time partying. From 11 o'clock to 6 in the morning. I said I should go outside and have my grandchildren play the keyboard out there. I said that I ain't gonna be right. Just they learning the keyboard and love go out there outside and play the keyboard by the house. Cause I know they've been laying around all day. So I just been having a good tone scale up.
Well, hold on to that energy. We got to be like the minister. We got to be able to bring our own atmosphere with us everywhere we go.
That's correct.
All right. Now, Sister Charlotte, there was a question you had asked at the very beginning before everyone came on, and I believe you said you wanted to pose your question again once the believers got here.
Yes, sir. I wanted to know if anyone who's working on the Dianetic lessons know which lessons correlate to which chapters in the book. I'm having a hard time completing my Dianetic lessons because I don't know how far to read before I start answering the lessons.
Okay, so you're saying is you're going through your extension course, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when you have at the top of each lesson, they will give you which chapter you should read before you answer any of those questions.
Really?
9 times out of 10, those questions will come in the same order that you'll find them in the text.
That's right.
So when you look at the top of your lesson, it'll tell you read such and such so-and-so and answer the following questions. And they might have 4 or 5 questions. So you just read that chapter and you answer those 5 questions. And so far I have found out that 99.9, if not 100% of the time, the questions will come in the same order that they'll be in the text.
Yes, sir. I thank you, because I did not notice that on my lessons. I'm just looking at all the questions and I got overwhelmed, and it's clear in day in bold print.
Right there, bro. So that was just a misstep.
Yes, sir. And this would have been my second misstep, because this is the second time I'm doing this extension course, because I dropped the ball the first time because I was confused, but it was clearly I didn't read. So thank you.
Don't feel bad, Sister Charlotte. I'll share this story before we get started. About 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, there was a test that was coming up for assistant chief position. And I studied this book back and forth. I bought the book that had all the test questions and possible test questions. And I studied. And I was ready for this test. Because if I get to the assistant chief position, I don't have to go run up into these burning buildings no more. I get a nice desk job, management. I ain't got to do all this other crazy stuff anymore. So I took the test, and the way the test was designed is, it might say, pick the best 3 answers for the question, and there might be 10 choices. But the way the test was designed is, you got to identify the 3 choices that you would take, but you also have to identify the other 7 that you wouldn't take. Well, Brother Lukeman failed that test. You want to know why Brother Lukeman failed that test? He didn't read the instructions.
Yes, sir.
Now, had I read the instructions, I would have seen what had happened and what I missed. And when I got my test results, all I said to myself was, it just wasn't meant for me to be in that position right now.
Yes, sir.
But now when the test came around the second time, guess what Brother Lukeman did?
Yes.
I read the doggone instructions. So,
Brother Lukeman, may I say something?
of course.
I have learned by me going back into the study of Dianetic extension course that you have to read the whole chapter from the beginning to the end and study it, because it does something to you, even in the study and answering the questions. And I've been told by one of my sisters, because she know I'm taking it. She said, "You different now. I see a change in you." And I didn't realize that, in our conversation we have, and my response to things. And I'm like, whoa, it's actually working upon me going through the courses, reading and studying at the same time. So when I do get to the questions, like you said, it is in order from the beginning of the page. You start reading and you answer. You can't just pop in there and grab the questions. That's not going to benefit you. You have to read it from the first page to the end of the page before you get to the next chapter. That's the part that's going to benefit you better, because it's going to install in your subliminal mind and it's going to stick there. And that's the key. That's the key. You want to read and study at the same time. Just don't look for the answers, because you're not gonna put it down properly. That's called cramming. On test time, and you don't read, you cram it real quickly and try to get the questions in there. And then you like, nah, and you get this C or this 73% because you didn't study what you read. You just went through it and pulled the questions out. And far as that sister with the anemic, if I say, I'm not saying I'm a doctor, but I found out because I tried to study. I've been working in healthcare. If you like cauliflower, that'll bring your levels up a better. If you like to eat cauliflower.
Let me pose this one question. Was it a sister that's in the Zoom meeting right now that recommended that book, Siddhartha, when we spoke on Wednesday? Or maybe the sister's not here.
Book
Yes,
of what?
yes, brother Lukman, that was me.
Sister Tina?
Arthur, yes, sir.
I read that book over the weekend, Sister Tina.
What did you think?
That book, because there's something that Sister Patricia said that's actually tied to what I read in that book. I've had that book since around 2017, and something always told me that I was supposed to read it. But when I picked it up the first time, I couldn't do it. And when you mentioned it, I set a goal for myself. Like Wednesday, we said we're going to make a postulate and then bring it into its fruition.
Yes, sir.
My postulate was to finish that book before Wednesday.
Okay.
The key point in that book, and it ties back to what Sister Patricia just said. The key point in that book, many factors, and I won't babble too much so we can get into our topic. But one of the key things from that book is this. The one thing Siddhartha was trying to tell Govinda, his friend, Govinda wanted to go and follow the Buddha. But Siddhartha was the type of person, he was like, you know what? I'm not chasing after people, because first he went into the woods to spend time with the sages, correct?
Okay.
And I'm going to put this in modern context, modern language. One of the things he said was, here I'm in the woods with these wise men. They're 60, and they still haven't found enlightenment. So why am I going to waste my time with them? And I think he was in his 30s. I don't want to spend 30 years in the woods with these dudes because they've been here all this time. If they haven't found enlightenment, what are they going to give me? Then they met with the Buddha, and Govinda, he decided to go off with the Buddha, and Siddhartha and the Buddha have this conversation, and he was very respectful. But the way he explained it, he said it like this. He says, the one thing that you have that you can't give to your followers is your experience. He says, you can give them all that knowledge. But he was like, but when you look at the fact that you came to this point of enlightenment based on what you learned while you were by yourself through your suffering, you can't give your suffering and your experience to those that follow. You can only give them the information.
That's right.
And that was the main thing. So going back to what Sister Patricia said, in our studying, one of the reasons why we stopped when we went through it the first cycle of time was that the study of the text, the way L. Ron Hubbard writes his methodology, I know for me, on some levels, it was difficult to follow. So for some of us, we were like, I can't do this. So so in other words, you have to suffer through the tech, and then a time will come, you'll continue to go through it, and then you'll get those aha moments where things will begin to click.
Yes, sir.
And like Sister Patricia, you can't skip around. You have to read it paragraph by paragraph. And then one thing you'll notice that as you go further in the tech, you go Dianetics, then you go Science of Survival, you go to Handbook for Pre-Clears. He's talking about the same subjects over and over again, but the tech evolves, the terminology changes. So if you just jump to one book over here, and then you go back to the Dianetics, you know, if you don't understand that these two terms are really talking about the same thing, but he changed the term, then you get lost. But you have to suffer through. And then, you know, I can almost guarantee that if you just continue to do the studying, there comes a point in time when you get those moments where things start to click. And then it's just like the whole world opens up to you now. And then you begin to see the tech in everything. So I just want to bear witness to what Sister Patricia was saying on that, but also bear witness to that book. As I'm reading that book, it was like I was reading about myself. I saw myself in this book, you know.
Yes, sir.
Then Siddhartha decided to go run off, and he met with Kamala, and he was chasing after money and wealth and all this other stuff. Then he realized that didn't bring any peace either. And then he met up with I think the guy's name was Vasudeva, the one who owned the boats. And he learned enlightenment from a person that wasn't even a priest. You know, and this is the last thing I want to say is, on this note, is that I thought about the minister, and that the minister can give us all the wisdom in the world, but he can't give us the experience of his suffering.
That's right.
We have to endure the experience of our suffering and understand that our suffering is part of the process.
That's right.
So if we run from the suffering, we run from the pathway that leads to our enlightenment. So that's what I got from that book. That book was incredible, Sister Tina. Thank you for putting that bug in my ear to pick, because that book's been sitting on my shelf for years. I can see it. I would look at it. It was just like, I knew I was supposed to read it, but I have a bad habit of starting I have books where they got pieces of paper in many places, but I haven't taken a book and read it from start to finish. That's the first book I have completed probably in over a year.
Praise be to Allah.
So I completed my postulate. Now, so my goal is, God willing, is to complete one book per week now. I'm gonna try to do that for 2023.
Yes, sir.
That's the goal. Because I'm a bookaholic. I love reading, but I never complete a cycle.
And yes, sir. And Brother Lukman, in that book, did you pick up where he went through everything? He was like the prodigal son.
Yes.
He went through everything. He never knew a woman before, but he knew one when he went out in the world. He went out in the world, and when he was to the point where he was eating the same slop as the hogs was eating, that's when he knew he needed to go back home, right? And on his way back home, when he met the man who passed the knowledge of God on to him, right?
Yes, ma'am.
No? Oh, you saw? Okay.
No, I mean, there's certain things that I read, but now as you mention it, I'm like, yeah, I'm going back like, okay, yeah, I didn't catch that. But when you brought it up, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So he realized that, you know, he was running, looking for salvation and everything outside of himself. But no, that book. So now when I go back and read the book again, I can study it. This time I wanted to just read it.
Yes, sir.
The book I'm working on right now is called The Book of Five Rings. I'm studying that one, but that book, Siddhartha, Sister Tina, thank you for I think Allah sent you to me to put that bug in my ear about that book. That book was incredible.
All praises due to Allah. Yes, sir. You're welcome.
All right. Well, let's get at it. This is what we came here for. Okay. So we got the devil and the reactive mind. And we're all familiar with this passage. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, and we have revealed the book to the explaining all things and the guidance and mercy and good news for those who submit. And I say this 1,000 times, and I will continue to say it. If this is a book that's explaining all things, it can't explain all things and then leave out and then leave out the tech or the science of the mind. So the science of the mind has to be in the Holy Quran, correct? Now I'm gonna pose
Yes,
this
sir.
question a lot since I can't see anyone. I pose the question just to get the feedback. But the science of the mind, since the Holy Quran does speak about the mind, there's two key words that are used. There's many more, but there's two key words that are used. And these two words, when you clear these terms in Arabic, they talk about the spirit and the mind. The one word is nafs, and the other word is kalubahim, which is a derivative of the root word kalaba. And interesting enough, the word kalaba in Arabic means the best part. So there you go, Sister Charlotte. You know, the best part and the mind, and you apply it to the tech, it all says the same thing. So everywhere in the Holy Quran where it talks about the heart, and men's hearts were like stone. You've seen that in the Holy Quran before, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In their hearts was a disease. Okay. When you look at the word heart in Arabic, qulub, but when you look at disease, you have the word maradun. That's the Arabic word for disease, maradun. And it just so happens, nothing's coincidental. The word maradun comes from the root word marada, M-A-R-A-D-A, if I'm not mistaken. But when you look at the word M-A-R-A, Mara is the word for devil when you deal with the study of Buddhism.
Wow.
Okay, so in their hearts is a disease. When you clear the terms in Arabic, it translates to in the mind, there are aberrations or diseases of the mind. So you can still, so the Dianetics in the Holy Quran, they fit together like this. We have to learn back our language of Arabic. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're going to look at this lesson, and it's not a coincidence that you asked your question, because Allah is the best planner. Okay, I'm not psychic. I didn't call Sister Charlotte up and say, you know, what are we talking about? This is just, I forgot my question. No matter how hard I try to go through these, there's always one piece of information that gets messed up. I forgot to put a question mark. So why does the devil keep our people illiterate? Now, I believe it was either Thursday or Friday, this question just popped in my head. Sometimes, and again, I take no credit for any of this. Sometimes a thought comes to me while I'm making salat. I try to bang my head on the prayer rug, and something just pops in my head. And then as soon as I get up, I try to write it down, and then I study that. And as I'm studying it, if I can see something in it, then my goal is to share it with the believers. Okay. So as I was looking at this, why does the devil keep our people illiterate? I'm always striving to look at what's called the law of substitution and take terms from the lessons and translate them into the terms used in the text. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we already know. One thing L. Ron Hubbard said in Dianetics, he says, he talked about the reactive mind. He said, if there was a devil that ever existed, he created the reactive mind. Have you read that before? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now the one way I try to look at it is like this. And again, a lot of this is just how I study, and this helps me to make the connections. But I look at, because Yaqub was the father of the devil, right?
Yes, sir.
He taught the devils to do this devilishment. I look at the lessons and make them applicable internally. So to me, Yaqub is like the reactive mind, and the devils are the engrams. Does that make sense? Because Yaqub taught the devils to do that devilishment, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, who teaches us to do devilishment?
That's right.
Our reactive mind. These
That's
devils
right.
we have on the inside, correct?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So what I do is I strive to study the lessons, but make them applicable. I try to self-medicate with the lessons. So it becomes a self-auditing or a straight wire tool just by reading our lessons.
That's true. That's so true.
Okay. So the answer is so that he can use them for a tool and also a slave, he keeps them blind to themselves so that he can master them. Okay. And all we're going to do is we're going to apply some word clearing to this lesson and see how we can find equivalence. Now, in mathematics, I won't go into this. I might go into it on Wednesday, but in mathematics, there's a course that's dealing with mathematical proofs. So when I'm going through the terminology, I'm not haphazardly trying to make things fit. I'm actually using a methodology that I've learned while I'm in school. As if it pleases Allah, I'll finally finish this degree this year. I got 2 classes left, but I actually apply mathematical rules to kind of find the equivalence to these subjects. And by Allah's grace, the amount of information that I'm able to find, I can't put it all into these Zoomings because we would literally be here 3-4 hours. It's just so much. There's so many ways that Allah has the tech in the Holy Quran. That book is like the ultimate book of auditing. I just put it that way. Okay. So, and then it says illiterate means ignorant. So the devil of our supreme wisdom, let me take this off, get that out the way. Okay. The devil of our supreme wisdom lessons can be an allegorical representation for the reactive mind, which is also called the genetic entity of the supreme technology. So early in the tech, he talks about the reactive mind, but later on in the tech, he talks about something called the genetic entity. And I'm going to explain specifically what that genetic entity is so we have an understanding. Now, as we're going through this, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have some cognitions. You're going to see some things from your time track. Okay. And that's a good thing, because the more you see in your time track, that means you're gaining back dynamics. He called them attention units. Science of survival, he started calling it theta. You're getting your theta back. Okay. The more theta you get back, you're disinterbulating the thetan. Now, what does that mean? It means the more you understand why you do what you do, the less power it has over you. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. It does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we want to
sir.
gain back our mind degree by degree by degree. So our lessons can be used as formulae or mental equations to understand the ideologies of other fields of study. I believe this is one reason why the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us in Message to the Black Man, page 90, that before you can say that what you have is the truth, you have to study the other religions and their scriptures. I'm currently reading the book called The Book of 5 Rings, which is one of those classic books dealing with military combat strategy. But the one thing in the book is written by a man named Miyamoto Musashi. And one of the main things he stresses is that in order for you to really understand, and he's talking from the perspective of warfare, martial arts. In order for you to really understand what you're doing, you have to understand the other forms of martial arts. And by studying other things, it helps you gain a better understanding of what you're focusing on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we're studying our Islam, if we go read, one of the first things we're told is to go read the poison book, correct?
Yes, sir.
And as we read the poison book, doesn't that give us a better understanding of our Islam?
Yes.
Okay. But now if we follow the instructions given to us by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, if you look at Buddhism, and one of the books that's connected to Buddhism is called the Dhammapada. But when you read the Dhammapada, you're going to see Islam. You're going to see Christianity. And then the Dhammapada will give you a deeper understanding of the Islam, and the Islam will give you a deeper understanding of the Buddhism. So the different religions and their scriptures, the more you read them, the more you'll see that these prophets, because we're taught that at different points in time, that the certain parts of the book are revealed to different prophets at different time periods, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And we're told that the book that we have, the Holy Quran, comes from a bigger book, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the Holy Quran, it talks about what's called al-Kitab, the mother of the book. And we know that the book we have is only 6,000 years of history, correct?
Mhm.
Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
When you say the book that we have is only 6,000 years of history, you're talking about
The Holy Quran.
Holy Quran. Okay.
Because what we have goes back to Abraham, right?
Yes.
So we go back to Jesus, that's 2,000. We go back to Musa, that's 4,000. And we go back to Abraham, that's 6,000 years of history.
Okay.
Okay. And then keep in mind that the book from on this cycle of time was not, it wasn't written to last 25,000 years, correct?
Right.
Because we only have 10,000 years in this cycle because they couldn't see beyond, or only 15,000, they couldn't see beyond that 15,000 year history, right?
Right.
So if the Holy Quran is 6,000 years, and this cycle of time is 15, then there's 9,000 years of history that we haven't even discussed yet, isn't there?
Right. Right.
Okay, so there's much more information. But our lessons and what we have is to prepare our mind for what is to come. And we've been told that the last 10,000 is going to be given to us by the Savior, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anything in that was in error? Does everyone remember hearing the minister speak on those topics? Were my numbers correct?
Well, you say in the last 15,000 years or the last 10,000 years?
No, the last 10,000 years is what the Savior brings, but this cycle of time there's only 15,000 years in this book.
Okay.
The Quran.
Yes.
So there's another books coming to be able to equal up to the years you're talking about we haven't.
Well,
Even.
has anyone heard the minister teach on that the last 10,000 years that there's going to be a book that's going to come written by the hand of the Savior himself? Has anyone heard that before?
I've heard something like that. Yes, sir.
Okay. So the last 10,000 years, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that when the writers wrote for this cycle of history, the light was so bright that they couldn't see beyond 15,000 years. So he said, the scripture said, put your pen down and write no more, correct?
Yes, sir. So if that's
Right.
the case, wouldn't it be the last, wouldn't it be 15,000 years?
No, the last 10.
The
last 10. Because when you look at the coming of Master Fard Muhammad, and if you look at our lessons, it comes out to the year 15,000.
Okay.
It said Musa came 2,000. How does the lesson go? It was in the 11th. It was in the year 11,000, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Our lessons say in the year 11,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you look at the fact that Musa was 4,000 years, then if you go from the year 11,000, you count 4,000, then that's the year 15,000 in the Asiatic calendar. Is everyone with me? I hope I didn't confuse anyone.
I'm with you, but I would have to look at the actual numbers.
Okay.
And what was done in order for me to really follow. So I'm just trying to get it in head.
One place to start is when you deal with Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1, and you deal with question
Page 11.
I'm trying to do it from memory because I don't have my book in front of me. But it said, why did Musa have a hard time to civilize the devil 2000 BC?
Yes, sir.
Because he was a savage. Savage means a person that's lost the knowledge of himself and was living a beast life.
Yes, sir.
And what goes after that? Musa was a half original man and prophet. 2000 BC means before Christ. In the Asiatic world, it was in the 11,000th year.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So now, if we go based on the math, that was the 11,000th year, and Musa was 4,000 years ago. So that brings us right up to the 15,000th year. And the last 10 are to be written by the Savior himself.
Okay. Yes,
Go ahead,
sir.
Brother Scott.
I'm Alaikum.
Islam.
Hey, for anyone that will really like to spend some time just getting all of the numbers in your head straight, Brother Minister Jabril Muhammad has a YouTube video called Self First, and it's in 3 parts. And I believe it's the second part where he gets on the board and starts going through, you know, histories. So he was referring to this 25,000 year cycle as, you know, a Quran. Then before this cycle, which is 15,000 years ago, another Quran was just in, and that covered 25,000 years of history. And it was, I guess, like 1,000 years into the last Quran when the Indians came over. It was 16,000 years ago. But he walks a lot, because I ain't gonna say too much more on that, because I'll mangle it and confuse what's already bad. But if you go there, he walks through, he starts 76 trillion years ago, 78 trillion. Then he walks to the present. He deals with deportation of the moon. He deals with Shabbats, but he deals with them specifically on the issue of time. And it's really helpful in pulling the mind together around those topics.
Thank you.
Praise be to Allah. So we know what our assignment is going to be for Wednesday then.
Yes, look at that video.
Watch the video. That's your homework. Watch that video, and then we'll discuss it. We'll discuss the mathematics on Wednesday morning, inshallah. All right.
Could the brother put the information in the chat?
Yeah, Brother Scott, could you put that in there?
Yes, I can do that.
Yes, sir, thank
I'm
you.
just going to put probably video 2 in there. And if you want to watch the others, you know, it's Self First, part 1, part 2, and part 3.
Yep, I know what I'll be doing tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So our lessons represent the fulfillment of all other knowledge. That's the key here. So now, learning objectives. We're gonna try to move swiftly through this. So how is the devil and the reactive mind equivalent? That's the first thing we're going to address. How do we become? Okay, is that mine? Who is that? Come on. Here we go. How do we become the tool of the reactive mind / genetic entity? How do we become the slave of the reactive mind? How does the devil / the reactive mind keep us blind to ourselves? And I had another point, number 5, in there that I took out. So again, there's one error there. What is the relationship between illiteracy and ignorance? So basically what we're doing is we're taking this lesson from our student enrollment and actual facts, but we're studying it from the perspective of the Dianetic text. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So that the more we do this, then as we go through our lessons, we'll see that the lessons are 3-dimensional. There's layers of wisdom. And the more we take a lesson, we go back to the beginning, we go over it again, what will happen? We'll be able to pick up additional data. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that additional data that we pick up is not contained in the lesson. That data is going to be contained from within our own mind, correct?
Yes, sir.
So now we begin the devil and the reactive mind, also called the genetic entity. This is just a picture of a dude whose mind is on fire right now. And I think, me personally, I think that's when the Bible is talking about the lake of fire. I believe that's an external representation of something that will take place. but I also believe it represents something that's internal. Okay, because no matter where you go, if you're aberrated, you bring the aberration with you, correct?
Yes, sir.
You can't leave the house and leave your aberration here. So now, what is the reactive mind? What is the genetic entity? L. Ron Hubbard says a portion of a person's mind which works on totally stimulus response basis, which is not under his volitional control, and which exerts force and the power of command over his awareness, purposes, thoughts, body, and actions. So this right here, so here we have Dianetics. We understand the reactive mind is also devil. But then if you go and read the Bible, if you read the book of Romans, and we always talk about the book of Romans chapter 7, the book of Romans chapter 7 talks about the law of my mind at war with the law in my members. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then I think it's the book of James that says the double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So we're at war. The self is contained in this physical body. And this physical body is always trying to settle on the best part. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yes, sir.
Say that part again, brother. I'm sorry.
I said the self, which is the truth, the essence of who we are. Okay, the self is contained in this physical body. This physical body has a mind of its own, and we're constantly at war trying to struggle to see who is going to settle on the best part.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
So when the body wins and the body settles on the best part, that's when we're eating 3 meals a day. That's when we're eating through the whole bag of potato chips. Okay, and I use those, not pointing the finger out, but pointing the finger at me. Because when I get stressed out, you know, because I'm not clear yet, that's what I deal with. And the majority of my stress eating takes place at work. I'm not using this as a justification, but it's just, I guess, just the anxiety of what I do. It's just over the past, you know, I'm coming up on 18 years now doing this. And based on the number of times that I've been injured, the number of times I've been hospitalized, the number of times I've been on disability, I need some auditing.
Get that trauma out.
I still got some trauma that I have to get out because of everything I've experienced, which is why I'm looking forward to getting this doggone promotion, because I'm tired of going in these burning buildings.
Ooh.
Okay, so I'm not trying to justify it. I know I got to get my eating habits back to where they need to go. So, say what? Yes, ma'am. Comfort food. It's exactly what it is. It's you know, and as I strive to study myself, you know, it is you go through stressful situations and your body's looking for endorphins and dopamine. And unfortunately, the way they package these foods now, these foods are used to get a person addicted.
Yes, sir.
And I'm on some levels, I'm dealing with a food addiction right now.
Sure.
You know? He says, stored in the reactive mind are engrams, and here we find the single source of aberrations and psychosomatic ills. Now, key point in this source of aberration and psychosomatic ills is this: based on our thoughts produce chemicals called hormones. Those hormones affect the body. So based on our thought, there are certain illnesses that we suffer from. Some of us have gone to the doctor and the doctor can't find anything wrong.
That's so true.
So some of these illnesses can be linked right back to thoughts that we have. 2 books I'm going to recommend to the believers. This one book right here is called Molecules of Emotion. Can you see that one?
Yes, sir.
Molecules of Emotion is the first book. It's written by a doctor by the name of Candace B. Pert, P-E-R-T. The other book is called Deadly Emotions. And this book is written by a doctor by the name of Don Colbert, Colbert. And both books stress the relationship between our thoughts and our diseases / psychosomatic illnesses that come about as a result of our thoughts. And when you read this book right here, Deadly Emotions, you're going to come right face to face with problem number 1 and problem number 2 of the problem book, and the sicknesses that the uncle and the wife suffered from in those problems. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
This is going to give you the science to add to problem 1 and problem 2.
The first one is by Dr. Pert. He's a doctor.
She's a doctor.
Okay.
Yeah, the first one's a woman by the name of Candace Pert, and the second book is Don Colbert. Both of them are doctors. And when you read these books and you have the problem book in your mind and you have the Dianetics, you're going to see a multitude of connections between how some of the illnesses that we suffer from is connected to thoughts that we have.
Yes, sir. Brother, could you just repeat the name of the first book, please?
Yes, the name of the first book is called Molecules of Emotion. It costs $19. Oh, that's in 19. There you go, $19. The other book, I was able to get it for $14.99. So they're very inexpensive, but there's a wealth of knowledge in there. Okay, so the key points here: the reactive mind exerts force over awareness, purposes, thoughts, body, and action. Second point is there's a connection between thoughts and sickness. Okay, so there's something inside of us that we're at war with every day. That's the main thing. The connection between thoughts and sickness, we've dealt with that in the past. I'm sure we'll deal with that again in the future. We'll show the connection, how negative thoughts translate to chemistry, and that chemistry actually ill affects the body. So the first thing we want to do is we want to look at tool of the reactive mind, because it says he'll use them as a tool and also a slave, correct?
Yes, sir.
So how does the reactive mind use us as a tool? How does the reactive mind manipulate Brother Lukman? How does the reactive mind manipulate Brother Scott, Sister Tina? How is our reactive mind pulling us like strings, like we're a puppet? Have you ever had the experience where you said you weren't going to do something, and then you see yourself and you wonder, how in the world did I wind up in the parking lot of Krispy Kreme? And I already knew I was on my way home. I had no intention. Then you find yourself in the drive-through somewhere. Have you ever experienced that? Or am I the only one? Am I the only one?
I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm pretty sure.
Am I the only one that, said, okay, I'm gonna go to work. I'm just gonna stop. I'm not gonna get anything. And then the little voice says, well, go ahead and stop and get a coffee. Because most times Elijah Muhammad said you can have coffee, just don't put all the cream and sugar in it. And I say, yeah, you're right. I can stop and get a cup of coffee. And then we stop and get the coffee and say, well, since you're here, why don't you get that to go with the coffee? And
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'm not the only one.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In fact, I don't call it comfort food. I call it uncomfortable food now, because you eat it long enough and start to get uncomfortable.
Ain't that the truth?
Right.
Yeah.
So, Brother Lukman,
Yes.
before we continue, could we ask Sister Patricia to mute her line?
Oh, yes. I hear that humming again. Could we have everyone just mute your line and then just come off mute when you get ready to share? Thank you. Praise be to Allah. Okay. So Satan ties strings to the mind and body so that he can manipulate one like a puppet. So the strings that are tied to the mind and body, the ones tied to the mind, we could say are aberrations, but the strings that he ties to the body, and I was watching a video, this gentleman talking about fasting, he talks about SOS. He says, you want to stay away from SOS. Now, we know SOS is the universal sign for someone who's in trouble, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and SOS stands for
Super, so-
salt, oil, and sugar.
Oh.
Salt, oil, and sugar. And if you notice, what is fast food? When we go out to eat, what is it? It's a combination of these three elements: salt, oil, and sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes the food addictive. Okay. So we're like puppets. So when any such recording, an engram, becomes reactivated, it has command power. Now I want you to keep in mind the term command power. It shuts down the conscious mind to a greater or lesser degree, takes over the motor controls of the body, and causes behavior and action to which the conscious mind, the individual himself, would never consent. Now, we all know how to eat to live. Book 1, book 2, 1 meal a day, no snacks in between. But how many of us follow that to the letter? You don't have to tell on yourself, but I'll tell on myself. I don't. Even though my intention is, because I've been told brothers at a certain age should get to the point where you eat 1 meal every other day. Has anyone heard that before?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And being that I was just blessed to have another birth anniversary, it's more important now than ever before to get to 1 meal every other day. But there have been many times, I think all of us have experienced this, where, that's why we're told don't go shopping when you're hungry.
Mhm.
Because you go thinking I'm just gonna get some fruit, and you come out with the Chips Ahoy and everything else under the sun.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Brother
Something takes over the motor controls, and then we do what? We apply deceptive intelligence. We justify, well, okay, I'll fast. I'm gonna do this today, I'll fast tomorrow.
Right.
Go
Yes,
ahead,
sir,
Brother Timothy.
Brother Lukman,
Go ahead.
I never heard of when you get to a certain age, eat 1 meal every other day, and how to eat to live. But one, and then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says when you get used to 1 meal a day, you can get used to 1 meal every other day.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, but if you do strenuous work, he does not recommend 1 meal every other day for those who do strenuous work. You do strenuous work, don't you?
Well, that's my justification. Why?
Yeah, but I've never heard that before. I'm reading book 1. I have not read all of book 2 yet, so I don't know if it's in book 2. But I have never heard after a certain age eat 1 meal every other day. I've never heard.
So
that.
I got to go and get actual facts, but that's something I remember hearing, especially amongst the brothers. The saying is, once a brother gets over 45, they should eat 1 meal every other day. And Bro Lukman is not way over 45, but a little over 45. I am 21 with 32 years of experience. I'll put it that way. I'm going to forever be 21. Go ahead, Brother Timothy.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to kind of go back to the first sentence that you had when it talks about the recordings and engrams becoming reactivated, and it has command power. Just last night, me and my wife was watching a movie. I don't know if anybody's seen it, called The Good Nurse, and it's based on a true story about a guy who was killing. He was a nurse, but he was killing people in the hospitals by putting insulin in their the little bags you have that drips down into the intravenous tubes. And one thing I noticed about in the movie is that when they caught him, without giving everything, when they caught him and took him to jail, and they were questioning him about why he did what he did, he started to use just a one phrase. He kept saying, I can't. And he said it and said it over and over again. And every time he said it, he he said it more aggressively. But part of the story was that his mother was killed, something like she had died in a hospital for some reason or another. But when I saw that, I thought about that. I said, 'cause I'm starting to see certain things of Dianetics in movies.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I noticed that it was kind of like a command phrase when the way he said it, So I thought about that when I saw that.
No, that's a perfect connection, brother, because the more you study the tech, if you begin to watch movies, and again, Mother Tanetta Muhammad she said that, there are scientists that put the truth in movies, and then as you become aware, you'll see these in there. You'll see the information in there.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Wait, before we go forward, there's an Alan Bowden I see on the line, brother. Could you introduce yourself to us, brother, since you're new to the group? Alan Bowden, USA.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Yes. What do you want to know?
Oh, where are you from, brother? Are you in the nation? Are you in America? I mean, we just want to show our appreciation for your presence, brother. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I live in Virginia. Currently, I'm from Delaware. I'm a Navy veteran.
Okay. Okay. And how'd you hear about us today, brother?
Somebody sent me the link. What's his name? Brother Anthony.
Brother Anthony.
Brother Anthony Muhammad.
Oh yeah, that's me. Anthony is my birth name. Was it on through Messenger?
You don't send me the link. You don't know who I am.
I went through my friends. I went through friend requests today. Reaching out to individuals that had reached out to make a connection with me, and I just look at it as an opportunity to meet new people and begin to dialogue with new people. So that was an opportunity to open the door to create a dialogue, brother.
I got you.
Yes, sir. All right. Then it says, he is nevertheless handled like a marionette by his engrams. So when we get in certain situations, a person can say something to us or do something to us, and then we become a totally different personality, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes.
Has anyone experienced that?
Yes, sir.
And then
Yes, sir.
after the fact, when it's all said and done, we say to ourselves, I can't believe I said that, and I can't believe I did that.
Yes.
And really, it wasn't us that said it or did it. It was something within us that we carry around. Go ahead, Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. When you had first asked us what is pulling the strings, the first thing that came, the more you talk, the more it brings to my mind desires. Our desires is what pull the strings. And I'm seeing how our desires are connected to our aberrations, so yes, sir.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Brother Wadu.
Assalamu alaikum. As we are talking about the reactive mind and it exerting command control, my mind went to the biophysical, and as the stimulus response aspect, and I'm thinking of in the body we have what are called reflexes, which only travel in a circuit that never reaches the higher brain centers initially. So if you put your finger on a flame, with you being a fireman, you don't have to think about removing your hand from that flame of fire that your finger is being exposed to. That's a reflex, and that never reached your cognitive portions of your mind to remove that. It does ultimately get there and get locked in as a memory. And that takes me to where we are presently in the conversation, in that I'm starting to think about some of the diseases that are, the body is doing things, but the person has no volitional control over those things. So I'm thinking of a disease like Parkinson's, where there's these tremors. And of course, we haven't in the medical realm studied it from this aspect, but it makes me to wonder if there were some reactions that certain people may have experienced that caused them to have jerky or those catatonic like reactions to things that got imprinted into their memory, such that later on, now those reactions are ingrained or are ingrained into their behaviors and actions, as, and we call it or have labeled it as Parkinson's. People who may have a resting tremor, or there are people that have positional tremors and intention tremors and all of these different things. But I'm just thinking that maybe due to some reaction, and maybe if it was repeated, it became more of a habitual type of component, and that their reactive mind then became more dominant than their cognitive mind.
Two thoughts pop in my head as you're speaking, Brother Wadu. One is, and you may have already studied this being in the field of medicine, but if you were to pull up some videos on YouTube from individuals suffering from shell shock, I think it was either World War I or World War II, those individuals look terrible. And that's just based on being in the war and bombs constantly exploding all around them. I know my father, as a Vietnam veteran, may God be pleased with him, he had certain psychological idiosyncrasies, based on what he experienced. And that was back in 1965. And there were certain characteristics he had up until, he passed away. There's some truth in that. And I think there's a lot more to be studied in that, to give some mass, to what you're given. I believe, if you haven't already read the book, Deadly Emotions, a lot of what you just said is in that book.
Yes, sir.
Definitely,
yes,
definitely a good book to study. Let's see.
Welcome back, Brother Wadud.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Sister Anya.
Then he says, of all the engram demon circuits found and removed, those which contain a seemingly all-powerful exterior entity which would solve all problems and answer every want were the most dangerous. He says, as the engram keyed in further and further, it was constantly restimulated. It eventually made a spineless puppet out of the eye. And the individual is the eye. Because other engrams existed, the sum of the reduction tended toward insanity of a serious sort. So if we look back at our past, we have multiple points on our history, which is called the time track, where certain people have either said or did things to us to enforce certain behaviors on us, or to inhibit us from our own determinism. Does that make sense? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And all of that is still with us. And that's why in the modern context, at the ages that we are now, whether we're 30, 40, 50, or 60, the ages we're at now, there's certain part of our psyche that is stuck at the age when we went through the emotional pain that we went through. So for some of us are in our 40s and 50s, but we have a little boy and a little girl that's still present. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Sister Tina.
Oh, I have to put my hand down.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. That's okay, no problem. He says the fact that the preclear's analyzer shuts down whenever he comes into an area of unconsciousness was why the engrams could take him over and use him as a puppet when they were re-stimulated. They simply shut down the analyzer. Now, if you've experienced this and you want to just raise your hand or bear witness, that's fine. But how many of us, and again, I use examples from my own experience because I'm always pointing the finger at myself. I've noticed that there are times when I slip on my diet, or times when I'm either angry or extremely tired. Has anyone ever experienced that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Stress.
So stress and fatigue, he says in Dianetics, stress and fatigue is what opens the door to our aberrated mind. So 9 times out of 10, someone will tick us off and actually say, no, I got to go do this. I don't even want to deal with this right now. It's because we're angry, or there's times, man, I'm just so doggone tired. And that's when we do something else. Go ahead, Brother Allen.
Yeah, I was just thinking, my cousin from Delaware, that's in the nation, and recently mentioned that he had a stroke. And he said when he went to the doctor said he couldn't find anything wrong. So I was just thinking, listening to y'all on this conversation, and that came up. I was just thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
I just found that interesting.
I don't want to ask his medical history, but individuals that have stroke, one of the precursors for a stroke, and if the good doctor can just back me up on this one, if a person has something called atrial fibrillation, it's a certain type of heart rhythm, and people that have that heart rhythm become more susceptible to strokes. But that heart rhythm can be the byproduct of chemistry and thoughts. Is there truth in that, brother Wadu?
Yes, sir. The AFib portion, the etiology of that is a little bit a little different than the general explanation that you gave, but what you said about the AFib is absolutely correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's our in-house one of the scientists that comes to, he just came back from Mecca, so he's here.
Well, I have some stories to tell. I wouldn't say it was Mecca, and it would take us back to where the conversation this evening started in terms of learning different formats. But that's a story for another day.
Okay, we look forward to it, Brother Wadu. We're just glad that you're back here with us.
Praise belongs to Allah.
Sir. So the word tool. A tool is a handheld device that aids in accomplishing a task. Now, one thing I remember Brother Jabril saying is this, that when you read a dictionary, he says the first couple of definitions are the surface ones. I'm paraphrasing it, but don't stop at the surface ones. Read all the definitions when you define a word, and you'll see that as you go down, you'll find some real interesting connections with some of the definitions. A tool is also one who is used or manipulated by another. So now we say the reactive mind is like the devil. Then isn't the devil using us as a tool and also a slave, the same as the reactive mind using us as a tool and also a slave?
Yes, sir.
So then we can say that lost found Muslim lesson number 1, question number 7, we cannot make that applicable to the tech, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. A tool is also a foolish or unlikable person. Well, how do you know that you're a tool? When you get out of valence, when you become re-stimulated, don't we act like a fool?
Yes, sir.
Aren't we acting like an unlikable person because aren't we carrying out the characteristic of the individual that hurt us to begin with?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
So the reactive mind is what? has converted us into a tool. As a verb, now here's where we're going to start to make some connections to the scriptures. It means to cause to go. It also means drive, okay? Now, remember, we talked about command power before, right? Command power.
Yes, sir.
And we talked, now we're looking at the word drive. So command power comes from Dianetics. Drive is coming from the lessons. And now we want to see if we can find this in the Holy Quran. Because if we can find this in the Holy Quran, then we've made a little triangle between the Dianetics, and we mentioned the Bible as well, because the Bible talks about the law of my members. And the law of my members is the same as saying, or the double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, is the same as saying that the body begins to have command power over the individual. Does all that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the genetic entity controls us. The genetic entity is the body, is the physical body. L. Ron Hubbard says that the traumas from our childhood or from our history is actually recorded in our physical body. And I've heard Mother Tanetta speak about this before as well, that much of what we experience is recorded in our DNA. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, I heard that, yes.
Okay. Now, here's another interesting thing I found out. Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 1 asked the question, who made Holy Quran or Bible? How long ago? Will you tell us why Islam renews their history every 25,000 years, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then it says that we make our history to equal our home circumference a year to every mile. Interesting thing about that 25,000 is, you know, as I'm reading different articles to find more material to add weight to the Zoom meetings, I found out that one chromosome can have up to 25,000 genes on it. I thought that was interesting, an interesting number. Something about that number 25,000. He says, and this is talking about the genetic entity, the reactive mind comes into being as a servant of the analytical and is set up by the analytical mind to work upon and store data about basic uncertainty, that there might be something and there might be nothing. So in other words, the body is supposed to serve the individual. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Key point here is this. We are not our body. The body is just a tool that we use in this 3-dimensional space and time. We represent the force and power that exists in this body. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
The clearest explanation of that concept can be found, was it Savior's Day 1996? Who is God? Does anyone remember that?
91.
91.
91, I believe.
Was it 91?
Yes, sir.
91.
Christ Universal Temple.
Yes. You know what? I said it, and I was thinking of the one where the minister was dressed in green, which is also a good one. But yes, 1991. Matter of fact, that was my first Savior's Day. He was dressed in white.
Wow.
That's the best explanation that I could think of. Okay, this body is not us. This is just a tool that we use. Okay. Then he says the reactive mind then continues in growth, and from the servant, if the analytical mind does not observe it, tends to become the master. So the body, slowly but surely, degree by degree, gains mastery over us. So when you deal with the scripture, it says, if you're faithful with little, I'll make you rule over much. The more we miss our 1 meal a day, the more we miss making our salat. Eventually missing 1 salat becomes what? Missing 2 salats. Missing 3 salats. Next thing you know, 2-3 days have passed and we've missed all these salats and we wonder why we feel miserable. Okay. So again, I'm not saying this from the perspective of one who is 100%, because I'm not, but I recognize that letting the little things slip eventually will grow to become big things. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Correct.
So where can we find the reactive mind? the genetic entity in the Holy Quran. Because again, Allah says, I've given you a book explaining all things. So if this genetic entity is a real concept, if it's a real construct, has to be in the Holy Quran. And it is, but it's just not in the Holy Quran under the name of genetic entity. Okay. So there are 3 areas we're going to cover real quick in the Holy Quran that provide evidence that would support the concept of the reactive mind genetic entity found in Dianetics. This is the same concept of devil that's found in the Bible. If you look at Surat al-Qiyamah, the resurrection, which is Surah 75, and I start here based on the introductory letter to the self-improvement study program, the opening written, I believe, by Sister Ava, may Allah be pleased with her. She talks about El-Qiyamah and what's called the Nafs. Does everyone remember that?
No.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you go back,
Yes, sir.
Go back to the intro to the self-improvement, Sister Ava does speak about this surah. Then we're going to look briefly at Surat al-Yusuf, which is Surah 12, ayat number 53. And then we're going to look at Surat al-Qaf, which is Surah 50, verse 16 through 21. And in these 3 areas, it'll give us a deeper understanding of the reactive mind, but give it to us in an allegorical way. So Surat al-Qiyamah, I'm just going to read this this is coming straight from the Holy Quran. It says, and this is from the introduction to the surah. It says, it is really the spiritual resurrection that is evidence of the great resurrection. The clue to this is contained in Surah 2, verse 1, verse 2, I swear by the self-accusing spirit. The self-accusing spirit in Arabic is called nafs lawama, is the first stage of man's spiritual resurrection. It is the stage in which the inner self of man asserts itself when he does evil. The human in man becomes stronger than the animal in him. I think we can all bear witness that there was a time in our lives that we could do some, what we would say, some evil, wicked things, and we wouldn't even think too hard about it. But then at a certain time, we got what's called a conscious. We realized that what we were doing was incorrect. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Because all of us have a history.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're visiting from the mothership, we all have a history. Then it says, while the first stage is that of the animal, the Amara, and then that's where we get Surah 12, verse 63. It says the second may probably be called the human stage. The third stage, that of the growth of the divine in man, is called Mutma'inna. That is, O soul that is at rest, okay? Mm-hmm. The awakening of the spiritual in man is thus spoken of as being an evidence of the great resurrection. And that's coming from the Holy Quran, Maulana Muhammad Ali, and that's page 1154, but that's the introduction to Surat al-Qiyamah. Now, in Surat al-Yusuf, which is Surah 12, it says, and I call not myself sinless. Surely man's self is wont to command evil, except those on whom my Lord has mercy. Surely my Lord is forgiving, merciful. Here we have one of the first instances of what would be called the Nafs Amara, which is the equivalent in Dianetics of the genetic entity or the reactive mind. It says from the footnote, it says, man's self is here called Amara, one want to command evil. It is in fact the lowest stage in the spiritual growth of man. It is what may be called his animal self. Low desires and animal passions rule the mind of man, and he is capable of doing any evil without feeling any pangs at all. He submits to his carnal desires like the brute. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the things you read, low desires, because we're taught desire feeds the will. So that's what made me think about desires. So you read it right there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, the one point that's really going to hit home is Surat al-Qaf. It says, and certainly we created man, and we know what his mind suggests to him, and we are nearer to him than his life vein. But now look at this ayat. if we created man and we know what his mind suggests to him, does that not imply that man and mind are two separate entities?
Yes, sir.
Because if it's suggesting to, so you have what's called a cycle of communication, right?
Yes, sir.
And in Dianetics, you have, when you deal with communication, has anyone studied communication in Dianetics? Well, when you study communication in Dianetics, you have the point of origin, which is called the source point, and then the point of where the communication goes, I believe that's called the input point. And a cycle of communication is, if I say something to you and then you respond, that's one complete cycle of communication. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So oftentimes I'll say something, I'll say, is that right? Or do you understand? And then someone says, yes. So I know the cycle of communication completed the cycle. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. In the church, it's feedback. In Dianetics, it's called a cycle of calm. But here in this ayat, this is showing us that we know what his mind suggests to him. So the mind is becoming the source point. But we have to be able to control the cycle of communication, right?
Yes.
Then he says, in the Holy Quran says, when the two receivers receive, sitting on the right and on the left, he utters not a word, but there is by him a watcher at hand. And the stupor of death comes in truth. That is what thou wouldst shun. And the trumpet is blown. That is the day of threatening. And every soul comes with a driver and a witness. Now, again, this is how I study. We know that none knows the interpretation save Allah. And the rest of us say we believe in it all, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But
Yes, sir.
This is just what I see. This is my study, how Allah shows me it, but I'm not trying to interpret and saying this is what the Holy Quran is saying. This is just what I see. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now when you look at, and certainly we created man and we know what his mind suggests to him, again, mind and self are two separate entities. This is the Arabic, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce because I don't speak Arabic. I just know how to use a dictionary. But when you look at this word over here, and I think you can see my viewpoint, my pointer, it says tu waswisu, that word right there. That's the same word you find as the whispering Satan in Surah 114. So the whispering Satan, the whispering devil who whispers into the hearts of men in Surah 114 is the same word used to describe what makes the suggestion to us from the mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And every soul comes with a driver and a witness. Now wait till you see how this comes out. When we do the word clearing on this with the Arabic dictionary, the word driver is sayakun. And the word sayakun means to drive. Remember, we talked about command power. Yes. The reactive mind has command power from the Bible, the law of my members. The double-sided man, the double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. This word in Arabic means to drive or to urge. But it also means driver, chauffeur, or engineer. Now, if you're in a car and you have a chauffeur, you're supposed to tell the chauffeur where you want to go, correct?
Yes, sir.
But if the person that's driving has command over you, you go where the driver says, right?
That's right.
Think back when you passed by, when you were a child and you wanted to stop at a fast food place. Can we stop here? And your mother or father might have said, no, we eat when we get home. Anyone experienced that before?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, sir.
You didn't have
Got
control.
engrams about it right now.
You didn't have control of the vehicle. Well, that's how it is with the reactive mind. It takes us where it wants to go, and we're just along for the ride. That's called aberration. But look at this. An engineer is a crafty schemer or one who plots. So that's what the reactive mind is doing. The reactive mind is plotting. And I use the word engineer because L. Ron Hubbard used it in Dianetics. He says an electronics engineer can set up demons in a radio circuit to his heart's content. So he uses the word engineer to refer to the reactive mind, the genetic entity in Dianetics. And I thought it was interesting that this is the same word that's found in the Holy Quran that describes the driver, a driver and a witness. Does that make sense? You see the connections?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
As long as I get one yes, I'm good to go. So every soul comes with a driver and a witness. Well, the word witness is shahidun. Shahidun. And the word itself means evidence or testimony. But when we clear the word a little bit further, the word is also the same word used for a notary public. Now, we all know what a notary public is, right?
Yes, sir.
What does a notary public do?
It notarizes things.
Notarizes. So they verify information and they record it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have what's called a notary journal, which is a record of all actions performed by the notary. So the notary has to keep track by date. And I think sometimes they might even write down the time that something was notarized. Information in an orderly fashion, correct?
Okay.
What does that sound like in Dianetics?
Recorded date in the orderly
The time track?
That's the time track and the file clerk, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The notary and the information recorded are similar to the time track and the file clerk. Just as a notary records everything based on date and time. So the driver and the witness could be that aspect of ourself that records what we do, when we did it, how we did it, where we did it, correct?
Yes, sir.
What does Allah say in the Holy Quran? And we have recorded everything in a book.
Yes, sir.
But the book is who?
Is ourself.
We are the book, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Brother Timothy.
Yes, sir. Just real quick, when I was reading, doing some question and answers in the self-analysis, and it talked about a sense of time that's already embedded in the person. They're talking about like calendars and things like that are artificial, but the body or the mind already has a sense of time. So you can ask someone to go to a certain time, they can go to that,
Yes.
without necessarily looking at the calendar. The mind will automatically pick up that time. So yes, sir.
Because when we audit someone, one of the first things we do is we have that person return to a certain time period. And then one of the tools that we use, if they get stuck on the track, we do what's called a time shift. Do you remember the time shift for the auditors? Can you go back to a minute before this event took place?
Okay.
And then and then what happens is the mind will go wherever you ask. That's how the Dianetics works. And if someone's stuck, you can say, can you go back 5 minutes before this happened? Okay, what do you see? And then they'll start recounting that situation, but it's like pressing rewind on a tape recorder. They'll go back 5 minutes leading up to that point. And then when you go back 5 minutes and you lead up to that point, oftentimes you'll have the momentum to break through that occlusion or that blockage, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So quick summary. Animal stage is the nafs amara of the Holy Quran, which means constantly urging, always demanding. It's the baser self of man that incites to evil. That's the actual definition that comes from the Arabic dictionary. That's equivalent to the reactive mind. Can we agree to that?
Can you repeat that again? That meaning from the—
Yes, it says constantly urging, always demanding is the baser self of man that incites to evil.
Yes, sir.
Now let me provide a demo kit. Those of us that have children, have you ever gone shopping and the child wanted something and they just kept asking, and finally you gave it to them just to shut them up? Has anyone ever did that? Okay. That's the demo kit for the reactive mind. It'll keep asking until it's satisfied.
Yes, sir. That reminded me when you were talking about the parent driving in the car and the child say, can we stop? And the parents say no. If the child screamed and hollered, they might turn over, might go ahead and stop. So that's what I was thinking about when you were going over that.
Now, let's go back on my time track for just a minute because a memory just came up and I laugh about it now, but I remember it vividly. It was around 1976, 76, 75, 76, 77. The name of the store was called Grant's. This was back when I lived up in Schenectady, New York. And I remember seeing this Mickey Mouse magic set. And I cut up a fool inside the store because I wanted this Mickey Mouse magic set. And there was a point in time, my father, all he had to do was just touch his belt buckle, and that was like a silencer. That shut everything off. Just seeing him tap because that lets you know that was the warning shot. Keep it up, and this is what you're gonna get. So I cut up and acted a fool. So my father, he bought it for me. He did. And I still remember to this day in the backseat of that Gran Torino, driving home, playing with my Mickey Mouse magic set. I remember getting inside the house and then the hand of God snatched me up so fast. Once we got out of sight and out of mind, I was chewing a piece of gum. And my father grabbed me so quick because he was about to show me, what the business was. The gum got stuck in my throat and I started choking. And I think choking on the gum actually saved me from a whooping because it scared my father so bad he let me go. My mother hit me in the back and I spit the gum up. But choking on the gum actually saved me. I don't know how that memory, but I just went back on my time track and relived that whole thing.
Yes,
anyway,
sir.
It says that driving the witness could correspond to the same force within that is constantly at war with us. So it's like that. The reactive mind is like the little child in us that constantly wants the cookie. It constantly wants this. It constantly wants that. And then you have to finally say, no, you can't have it. I remember Sister Ava saying, you have to be able to say to your stomach, peace, be still, I am God. Mm-hmm. Okay. The witness, Shahid, could be the equivalent of that aspect of self that records the deeds. Can we agree with that?
Can say that again, Brother Lukman?
The witness, which is the Shahid, could be the equivalent of that aspect of self that records the deeds. So the Shahid of the Holy Quran is like the notary public that records information. That could be the equivalent of the file clerk in the time track within ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, we're just using different language, but we could be talking about the same thing. Yes. Now, what is a slave? And this is where we land the plane. A slave is a person held in forced servitude. Well, that we already know just by being in this country. A person who is completely subservient to a dominating influence. Well, here we come again. If the reactive mind is controlling us, aren't we a slave?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
If we've become aberrated, if we are out of valence, if we are re-stimulated, have not we become a slave to something on our time track?
Mm-hmm. Sir.
Okay. It means to make directly responses to another mechanism. Mm-hmm. So there's something else going on in our mind, and God willing, on Wednesday, we're going to look at this from a mathematical perspective. How it's called the wild or the hidden variable, but we're going to look at this from the level of mathematics. There's something that's hidden within us that's causing us to cut up and act a fool. Does that make a sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. Coins. Now, we've used this term before, correct?
Yes, sir.
Who remembers the coins?
I forgot what it stands for.
Okay, that's all right. We're going to go into it. But as I came across this verse from the Holy Quran came to mind. This is why I don't take credit for nothing. Allah just guides me. I just write things down and I start to study. And some of you might see this and you say, "Oh man, that's how he's putting that together is great." I ain't putting nothing together. And I'm saying the same thing you are. I'm just as astounded as how this information comes out. Allah says in the Holy Quran, he teaches men by the pen and teaches men what man knew not, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, I bear witness to that. So this verse came to my mind. I said, now, I wonder if there's something here. It says, so coin not similitudes for Allah. Surely Allah knows and you know not. I said, there's something in that word coin. I'm thinking, I wonder, is there a connection between the word in Arabic and what the coins are in Dianetics? So let's look at that. The word coin is daraba. And one of the definitions for daraba is to sting, like a scorpion. Okay, that's one definition. Other definitions for daraba means to impose something on someone, to give an injection, to place in turmoil, to produce an upset. Well, isn't that Dianetics?
Yes, sir.
When you impose something on someone, look at the first three letters of the word impose. What's the first three letters?
Imp.
And what's an imp?
Devil.
An imp is a little mischievous devil. So daraba, the word coin, the Arabic is daraba, and the word daraba has all these meanings, and all of these have a connection to our supreme wisdom. And I'm going to show you how there's a connection to the Bible. But the supreme wisdom, if you look at injection, that would be the needle in the brain, correct? So needle in the brain, this scorpion sting, yes, is connected to the coins. And in the text, they're always talking about an upset, correct? Do we see these connections so far?
I don't see it clearly.
Not yet, but I'm about to show some other data. I'm gonna give you some more data that hopefully everyone will understand. There's more data to give you to paint a bigger picture. The scorpion, the word daraba, to impose something on someone, to give an injection, to place in turmoil. So those words imply aberration and restimulation, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is there a relation between the reactive mind, scorpions, and these coins? Now, hopefully this picture will paint a way that'll connect the tech, the Islam, and the Bible all together. Now watch this. If you look in Revelations, again, as I'm doing this, these things keep hitting my mind. I write it down and I try to see if I can find a connection. But in the book of Revelations, remember, the scorpion, by definition, is something that incites to action, which means to drive, like the sting of an insect. Okay. Revelations chapter 9, it says this, and there came out of the smoke locust upon the earth, and unto them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their forehead. Now, this is just me. As I was reading this, I was looking at that first ayah, talking about the scorpions representing trials that were going to come. And the second verse that I just read, I looked at that as that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing. I looked at that as the individuals that followed the instructions of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan with regards to the tech. And that they were the ones that had a certain seal in their foreheads. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
They're following the instructions of the tech in order to get through the grief and the emotional turmoil that is present, but is going to increase in the future, correct? Okay, that's just my interpretation. Then it says, and to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months, and their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. Now, interesting thing is this. When you study a scorpion's sting, the same characteristics, the same signs and symptoms of a scorpion sting are almost 100% identical to the signs and symptoms of COVID. That was just a thought that I remember seeing that when this whole COVID thing hit. But from a Dianetic standpoint, individuals are going to go through a period of being tormented or having to experience grief, correct? Okay. And in those days shall men seek death and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. That's the exact quote that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave us in that clip we watched a couple of weeks ago from The Divine Destruction of America, correct?
Yes,
Do we
sir.
remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now how could coins be connected to scorpion? So the description of the word scorpion from an Arabic standpoint is describing different types of aberration. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
Okay. But now the word coins was an acronym that we provided. The word itself, coin, means to impose. So here we go, to impose something on someone, to give an injection, to place in turmoil, to produce an upset. That's the Arabic definition. But when you look at coins from a Dianetic standpoint, the word C stands for compulsions. O stands for obsessions. I stands for insanity. The N stands for neuroses and psychoses. Even though we know psychosis starts with P, we use the S. And the word coins comes from, that's the acronym we use to represent these aberrations. So these are different types of stings that are imposed upon us by the devil externally that connects with the devils that we have internally, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because whatever our compulsions, obsessions, insanity, neuroses, or psychoses is, if you look at the way things are marketed to us, they feed our coins, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, they help to feed our insanity. This environment we live in is an environment of chronic restimulation. We're constantly having to go to war with the enemy of self. Constantly. And if you notice, the time where our prayer is the most, it mostly is during the daytime. We have the prayer in the morning, we have the one in the evening, but the other ones are during the daytime, correct?
That's correct.
And not only do we have those 5 prayers, but we need to be constantly in prayer. Can everyone go on mute, please? Thank you. So we're constantly having to be prayerful. Even when we're driving in a car, when you look at the people we come in contact when we're driving, there's a part of us that wants to just jump out the car and scream on people sometimes. But we can't do that. We would like to.
Right.
Okay. So what are the coins?
Brother Lukeman,
Yes, ma'am.
before you go on, could you just go back to the screen before you started scorpions?
Right here? Here?
Right before that. Okay, back one more.
What were you looking for particularly?
Okay, what was before coins?
The slaves?
Okay, yeah, it might have been right before that one. No, okay, forward. Okay, slave, and then coins. Okay, maybe it was the coins.
The sting, scorpion, to impose something on someone?
No, what's the next one?
Something that incites the action drive, like the sting of an insect. And then we went into Revelations. who give him power as the scorpions on the earth have power.
Okay. Oh wait, that might have been it.
Okay.
Mhm.
What did you see there, Sister Anya?
Okay, did you have two screens for Scorpion?
Let's see.
Or just one? That might have been, I think that was it right there. Okay.
Was that it?
Yeah, I think that was it, yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to share, or you just writing something down?
Right, yeah, I think that was it. Because that was the quote from Revelations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you.
Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to go back to that in the car, and somebody may make you want to scream at them, but you don't do it. But you may want to do it. So it made me think about desire again, and may want to do it, but you're suppressing the desire. So is that a compulsion? Is that like a compulsion that someone is suppressing? But if it was re-stimulated somehow, then you would just forget about yourself and scream on the person, no longer being able to control the desire to scream on them. So so it just made me think about how important getting rid of the desire, period, is, you know, and us falling victim to the coins. Because desire feeds the will. I can't help but think about the marionette, who controls the marionette, and then thinking about the study guides, desire feeds the will. So that's, it just stays in my mind that that's desire feeds the will. It pulls the string.
Oh, go ahead.
It, you know, the desire pulls the string. So that car situation, that made me think again about that, because I want to scream on them, but I'm suppressing it. So it reminded me of compulsion.
When we are supposed to think 5 times before we speak, because sometimes the first things out of our mouth, that we could say that might be coming from our reactive mind, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if we think 5 times before we speak, what are we doing? We're gaining control. If we explain it from the perspective of the tech, we're gaining control over the reactive mind. So instead of the reactive mind being a source point, we take control of it, and we control what we say. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. So that's how we get rid of the desire in the moment.
We have to, and from the book, there was 3 things he could do. He could think, he could wait, and he could fast. Those are 3 things Siddhartha could do. Think, he could wait, and he could fast. In Dianetics, I came across this term. It was called reactive pleasure. In the organism below 2.0 on the tone scale, tending toward death, a reactive pleasure is taken in the performance of acts which lead to succumbing on any of the dynamics. In other words, above 2.0, pleasure is survival, and below 2.0, pleasure is obtained only by succumbing or by bringing death to other entities, or by causing self or other entities to be suppressed on the tone scale. We're told that spiritual death leads to physical death, correct? So that's what he's saying. Below 2.0, everything that we find pleasurable are things that are taking us closer to death. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, Brother Wadu.
Yes, sir. You and Sister Tina tuned in on a thought that I had earlier in the discussion and conversation when we were speaking on why does the devil keep us illiterate, and remembering or learning, having learned, going through some of the things that I'm going through, that illiterate is not just the absence of knowledge and information, but for me, and Brother Wadude's understanding, it is to keep us from knowing how to think. And I say it that way because there's a process. And as you said, we are taught to think 5 times before we speak, and then we may be right. Not that we necessarily will be right, but we've undergone a process that will allow us to have a better chance of being right or correct. And that process of thinking, our people being illiterate, we react. We don't think before we do anything. So if someone steps on my shoe, then I'm in a fight. If someone scrapes my car, now I'm shooting at them. It's a reaction, but it's not thinking, okay, if I get into this fight, then I may end up with court judicial issues. If I kill this person, then I'm taken away from my family. So our people seem to be in constant reactionary mode, doing things without thinking of the ultimate cost of what those actions will entail. So that the conversation took my mind back to those words and that thought.
Yes, sir. When I was blessed to work as a chaplain in the prison system for the New York State Department of Corrections, as a chaplain, I had posed a question many times as an NOI chaplain, and almost 100% of the time, when you speak to brothers that are doing these heavy sentences, it all stemmed from an emotional reaction. And that little split second of losing control now costs them basically a heavy penalty with regards to time. I met some brothers that are doing 25 to life, 50 to life. I met one individual who was doing 75 to life, all based on an instant in time when they lost control of their emotions. So yeah, you're right, brother. That could cost us severely. So scorpions are people. It says in the Bible, and the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. Now, the way I interpret that is these scorpions are individuals. They're either individuals on the outside that try to enforce or suppress us, but these faces of individuals could also be people on our time track from our past. Does that make sense? All right, someone. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
When you say from our past, what specifically you talking about?
Okay. So the key to the use of Dianetics is this. There are certain things we suffer from now as adults. Okay, there's certain emotional trauma we currently have. And this emotional trauma is based on things that happened to us when we were children. Does that make sense, Brother Allen?
Yeah, got it.
Okay, so there are certain things that we say to ourselves in the present that actually hinder us from making progress. We come up with great ideas and goals, dreams, and aspirations. And then sometimes we put our own foot in our own way and we hinder ourselves from accomplishing those goals. Have you ever experienced that, Brother Allen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 9 times out of 10, that phrase in your head that's keeping you from doing what you need to do does not originate from you. It originates from something that someone said to you when you were a child. And what happens is with the use of the Dianetics, this is what the minister gave us to use as a tool. We're able to go back and locate those moments of time. And once you find out who it was, then you realize that it was never you. And then what happens is you become a better version of you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So all of us have been stung by someone in our past. And some of us are still we're still dealing with the effects of that poison. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So the conclusion I came to, and I've been thinking about doing this for the longest time, but this would be a great undertaking. Could these verses from the book of Revelation also be describing allegorically the destruction imposed on an individual from within during the time of judgment? In other words, is the book of Revelations a demo kit representing what's going on inside the aberrated mind? See, these demons that are coming up from the pit, could that represent individuals on our time track? These are just the thoughts that go through my head. Okay. Blindness. Hysterical blindness and deafness are extended sight or hearing are useful in diagnosis. The first, hysterical blindness, means the patient is afraid to see. Hysterical deafness means that he is afraid to hear. And extreme unawareness. So this is another word for blindness. Failure to examine the scene reasonableness, which causes blindness as to the obvious errors of penetration and defensive reasons not to admit it, all impede a proper analysis. Now, let me explain what all this right here means. The first paragraph is saying that blindness is a person's inability because they're afraid to look at their past. 9 times out of 10, individuals that don't want the Dianetics, they don't want to go back to what happened. They don't want to experience that. And when you try to tell someone about themselves, I don't want to hear that. That's in the past. Why you keep bringing up the past? So you have individuals that don't want to see what happened and they don't want to hear what happened. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
the second paragraph, I'm going to explain this as a cycle of action, break it into pieces so we can understand what it's saying, because written as it is, this is the language of L. Ron Hubbard, and this is what causes us sometimes to blow, meaning we stop studying. It's just his way of writing. You gotta get past his methodology.
Somebody got their hand.
Say what? Oh no,
Somebody
Sister Tina has her hand up from the last time.
Okay.
So a cycle of blindness. So when you look at what we just said, a cycle of action is start, growth, conservation, decay, and then death. We understand that cycle, correct? Do we understand that cycle? Because we use the cycle of action all the time, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how does a cycle of blindness start? It starts because of failure to examine the scene reasonableness. So we first, it begins by failing to examine things based on reason. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir. Brother Luke, I'm trying to make the connection in my mind. It makes sense to me
Okay.
on the question that I asked at the beginning. I've been working on Dianetics since it came out in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, the language made me put it down.
Mm-hmm.
But I have looked at these lessons. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at the lessons and I never saw the sentence of instruction that where you told me that what lessons coordinate to what chapters in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Never did I see that, though it is clearly, I see today, written on the sheet of paper. And I'm trying to understand how that happened, because I was trying to figure out how everyone is being successful in completing these lessons, and I'm stuck because I didn't know how to proceed, but the instructions are clearly there, but I never saw them.
Okay, let me pose this to you, and I want you to answer this in your own mind, in your own space, because this is your personal information. Can you think of any time on your time track when you had a problem with following instructions? Meaning you were trying to follow instructions and someone hindered you from following instructions, or someone was trying to force you to follow instructions that you didn't want to follow. Does that connect anywhere?
I'm sure it does. Yes, sir. I mean, I have issues to this day sometimes following instructions because I have a way that I do things, and usually I think my way is right.
Okay. Now, if you take that same thought, and I'm saying this from the perspective of this is your personal, but I'm seeing something, but this is a public setting, so this is your personal.
Yes, sir.
You take that journey back and see how far back you can go. And it's like you look at it from the perspective of what's called straight wire. Go back to an instance on your time track when that happened. Make a mental note, write it down, do whatever you want to do. Now, if you can find something, now, if I was to ask you something, because I don't think this is too personal, if you can think of a time when that happened, how far back, what year could you go to? Or what age could you go to when a situation like that pops up in your mind of that happening?
High school.
Okay, write down high school. And then when you do a high school, you'll be able to come up with a specific year, but we're not going to ask for the specific year because sisters don't like to give up their ages. So we don't want to get the age. So then once you examine that situation, straight wire that situation, look at that. Once you complete that, see if you can go back a little further. And then if you can go back a little further, then try to go back a little bit further. And what you might find is you might find on your time track a situation or an event where someone either enforced instruction on you that you didn't want to follow, or they tried to keep you from following instructions that you had a desire to follow. In other words, you had enforced ARC or you had inhibited ARC. You've already found one location in high school. That might still be with you. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And one of the key books you want to look at is self-analysis, because that allows us to straight wire ourselves when we don't have the ability to get the auditing. Straight wire is another tool we can use to get back some of that theta. Just the fact that you went back to high school, you gain back some attention units, because now isn't your mind filling up with a whole lot of data from that year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you see a classroom?
I was able to go back.
You don't have to share it. I'm just saying.
Yes, sir. No. I get you. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You got the classroom. Do you have the student or the teacher?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have what was said or what was not said?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So here's what you could do. On your time, go over that situation. You can either write it down, you choose, or just go it over in your mind. And then when you finish it, go back to the beginning, go over it again, and pick up whatever additional data you can contact. More data is going to come out about that particular situation. You keep doing that until you can't pick up any more data, but 9 times out of 10, what's going to happen is another situation further back on your time track is going to manifest. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And then you'll be able to get to the root of why does Sister Charlotte not like instruction now that she's a grown woman? Because she was taught not to like instruction when she was a baby. That's English lesson number C1. Do you see the principle?
Yes, sir.
Did your tone level go up a little bit?
It will.
Okay.
It will. Yes, sir.
All right. So let's land this plane, because, oh my goodness. Oh, please forgive me, believers. I just enjoy being amongst the believers so much, but I lose track of time. I'm sorry. Let me just finish this cycle. We're done. So failures to examine using reason. In the Holy Quran, Surah 53, verse 28 says that they follow conjecture, correct? Conjecture means you follow based on half-truths. Okay. And what happens? If we fail to follow reason, it causes a certain level of blindness, correct? So the blind man that Jesus went to, he didn't have any reason, right? That's why he saw men as trees. Okay, he wasn't using reason. Then it says to the obvious errors of penetration and defense of reason. So when a person fails to use reason, they begin to go blind. And what happens? You're not able to penetrate a certain concept, and then you become defensive. Have we ever experienced that from ourselves or other people? You become defensive when you don't know?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then what happens? You get to a point where you don't admit it. So we become defensive and we fail to admit that we are incorrect. We fail to admit that we don't know. That's where the steps of atonement come in. And then what happens is failing to use reason, going blind, we're not able to think, we become defensive, and then we don't admit that we're wrong. What happens? It impedes a proper analysis of the situation. Does all that make sense? These are the steps we go through that keep us what? This is the cycle of blindness that leads to what? Illiteracy and ignorance, which is the last part of question number 7. So L. Ron Hubbard says, he used the word glee. Glee means a kind of insanity. Glee is a special kind of embarrassed giggling. You'll know it when you see it. When you see glee on some fellow on a pass, realize it's because he doesn't understand what he's doing. He's ignorant about something, and above that is confusion, and above the confusion is glee. So ignorance is a certain level based on Dianetics. It's a level of insanity. So when you look at glee, it's a type of insanity. Below that is confusion, and below that is ignorance. So that is a gradient scale of ignorance. Ignorance, confusion, and then glee, which is a level of ignorance that's on the level of insanity. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
That's the gradient scale.
Brother Lukeman?
Yes.
Sir, there used to be a old statement that the older people that I grew up around would say, ignorance is bliss.
Mm-hmm. Or you could say ignorance is iblis.
Yes, sir.
So what I will do, I'm going to stop it here out of respect for your schedule and your time. Again, I just enjoy it. I look forward to Sundays and Wednesdays just to be amongst the believers. That's just, I love being with the family, you know, so, but I'm going to end it here and open the floor up to any final questions, thoughts, concerns, corrections, or suggestions before we close out. Any closing words anyone would like to share before we end it?
So your question then is based on Dianetics?
Yes, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave us instructions back around 2010, 2011 to use Dianetics as a tool. And the Dianetics, really, when you understand, now let me ask you this, brother, the time that you spent in the Navy, I'm not quite sure the terminology. I know being in the Army, we have what's called the MOS. I mean, MOS. What was your MOS in the Navy?
Navy is not called MOS.
Yeah, right. But what is it called in the Navy?
Oh, shit.
If you don't mind me asking.
Not MOS, but rank. Well, I gotta say rank. It's something else. I can't even remember what it is. But I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the rating. That's
It's your area of expertise and focus. It's what you do in the service.
Yeah, I was food service cook.
Okay. When you look at science, based on my experience, I have found mathematics and science applied to everything except the mind. And what we learned through Dianetics, through the instruction that the minister gave us, L. Ron Hubbard took the mind, which is something that is unseen, that we really don't talk about, and he was able to expose it to view using principles of physics, mathematics, and science in such a way. Mathematics and science allows us to predict, to study something in the present, and we're able to predict future behaviors based on mathematics. And I know you being a Navy person, you had to take that ASVAB, so you know about science and mathematics, correct?
Yes.
because you had to take the ASVAB to get into the Navy.
Right.
So L. Ron Hubbard took the science of the mind and he turned it into a way that we could study it. So as we study Dianetics, what it does is it allows us to go back into our own self, identify things from our past, and now we can begin to correct certain things so that we can be a better representation of ourselves and get back into the higher states of our own thinking. The minister gave us this 11 or 12 years ago, I would say, to do this study. And, you know, our personal goal is to inspire the believers to get back into that study, because the time is coming up now with the amount of grief that's taking place. When you look around us, drug use is increasing, insanity is increasing, suicide is increasing, mental illness is on the increase, and it's going to get worse. There's going to be individuals that are going to be needed to be used to reincorporate some sense of balance with regards to ourselves, our family, and the groups that we are a part of. So that's what we do. We're not calling people to become Muslim. If you want to do that, that's fine. But the minister always says, start where you are and just be the better. If you're a Christian, just be a better Christian. If you're a Buddhist, be a better Buddhist. If you're a Muslim, be a better Muslim. But study this tech because it'll allow us to help our friends and our family. You might be able to go share something with you said with your cousin that's in Delaware?
Yeah.
You might be able to share something with him to inspire him to get back into the study. And then your mind will begin to travel to higher realms of possibilities, and you'll become a better version of you, Brother Allen. And that's our goal. We want individuals to go shoot to the roof and shoot for the stars and manifest all the gifts that God has blessed you to have.
Now, when you talk about study, what material are you talking about? You have the material yourself? What?
There's an extension course that we go through where you get the Dianetics book and you get the extension course. If you put your email in the chat, I will send you a contact person that you can contact so you can start the process of getting your book and getting your extension course. And it's very, very inexpensive. It's very, very inexpensive. And you can start, it's like a self-study. And then if you need help as you're going forward, I'll give you my phone number. You can have my email. You can contact me at any time, and I'll take you step by step through whatever it is you need to get through if you hit anything that you don't understand. And then if you want to come back to these groups, thank you, brother. This is where we all come together and we share what we've been blessed to receive, and we all build off of one another. Okay. We're trying to maintain our sanity in a world that's going crazy. This is an arc that the minister has given us to get into, if you understand the arc. We're not talking about arc as a Noah's Ark. We're talking about ARC, affinity, reality, and communication. We're trying to get in this arc. Does that answer your question, Brother Allen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've been knew about the Dianetics and the prosperity about the minister speaking on it, but I just never. It was never just told to me how to get the books or the information.
Okay. Now where are you located, Brother Allen?
I'm in Virginia.
Virginia. Okay. I'm going to send you the information as soon as we get off the Zoom meeting. I'm going to send you a contact number through your email, and you can make contact at your earliest convenience, and you can start that process.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Go ahead, Sister Patricia.
Yes, sir. I wanted to ask a question that you spoke on earlier, real quick, and probably to the point. You said, well, I'm asking the question, not that you said, but if a person is getting auditing and they go back into the time track and then they may see something and they don't want to go forward and they stop, does more damage to that individual, or do that pile up on the engram that's already there?
You mean while you're going through the auditing, or just in general, revisiting your own past?
Just going through the auditing.
When you're going through the auditing, when you get close to an engram, it is natural that your reactive mind is going to fight against the auditor. Okay. And when you read the Dianetics, if you look at what's called engrammic commands are bouncers, deniers, holders, misdirectors, and groupers. And I'll give you a quick example. Any person that has children, whenever you catch the child and they did something they weren't supposed to do and you start to question them, they like to change the subject, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's how the reactive mind works. So the auditor's job is to detect how the reactive mind is being deceptive and trying to change the conversation. The auditor's job is to focus and zero in and circumvent the reactive mind the reactive mind is trying to survive too. So it's normal for it to happen during auditing. A wise auditor is not going to end that session until that engram is located and charge is released from it. Because once you find it, you're not supposed to let it go.
Okay.
So the auditing process is normal. It's normal for that to happen. But the auditor, a trained auditor, will see that and hone in on it like a surgeon, because the auditor is doing mental surgery. They have to remove a mental cancer. The trained auditor is going to look at your body language, look at what you're saying, and look at how you're saying it, and clean that bad boy, just clean that bad boy right out. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, praise be to God. Brother Scott, you got something you want to share?
Just wanted to say thanks, man.
Brother, I live for this.
Class.
I live for this. This is what keeps my tone up, bro. I love doing this.
Yeah.
Anything I can do to assist the believers, this is my purpose.
Yeah. Well, it was. I found it very helpful. I didn't speak to it earlier. I did have a win. We were blessed to have a conversation, my wife and I, with the minister on October the 18th. This past October, we spoke to him for about an hour and a half. And I was in such distress when we spoke. I sounded so crazy to myself that even though he allowed me to tape the conversation or record the conversation, I could not go back and listen to it. I tried, and when I heard me talking, I just shut it off, man. Like, man. But I went and I listened to it a few days ago for the first time since then. And as I was listening to it, it was as if I were in the conversation for the first time. Like, I listened to it and all of the energy of that conversation. When I got done listening to it, it was like I was tired, right? It was like, whoa, but in examining the self, this piece that you shared with us today really helped open up some avenues for me to further examine. I shared with the minister, I told him that, during the worst part of our struggle to complete this project that we were doing, I had to go back to study guide number 1, mixed feelings and controversy. How do you handle it? And I'm sharing this with him. And, the minister, he listens very, very, very deeply, like the supreme auditor. And so he listened. Then he asked me a question. Say, brother, do you think you could have done anything better? I mean, straight out study guide number 1. He was right there with us. And I was like, he asked me about a breached relationship and if I could repair it. And I was thinking, no, I don't want to repair that relationship. I'm good, but he wasn't letting us go on that, man. So it was really, but like it was just, it was difficult to re-listen to it again, but I did. And it was difficult in some instances. He gave instructions that I found a resistance to. It's like, well, wait a minute, how am I not feeling great about, I mean, you getting an instruction, that's a blessing. But the little hard imp was like, I don't want to do it. So now I'm fighting with this imp internally, you know. So like, but the piece that you just laid out is beautiful because it lifted illustrations from the Quran, which gives character to the dynamic forces internally. Now I have a driver and a witness, right? That I can kind of like place these things, and it makes the experience more palatable, you know. And I also had a conversation with a sister that I work with who's an auditor, and she was asking me about the project because we hadn't talked in so long. And as I shared with her what happened, it was the first time I was able to share with another person, you know, that past year of work and not get caught up. So when I was talking with the minister, I couldn't share the work because I kept getting caught on instances of intense trauma when trying to execute, you know, these maneuvers. But I listened to the recording, and we ended up talking, and I was able to kind of just go right through. So it's way out how this works. It's way out, you know, like it's so important to be protective of your tone and your space, you know. So Sister Tina also helped me. We spoke in a meeting on Saturday, and when she shared, hey man, I've been judging myself, calling myself lazy. I said, yeah, I had that conversation with myself too. I call myself lazy all the time, you know. But then I have an unhealthy drive because I'm always saying I'm lazy, and then I'm not resting.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yes, sir.
And conversation before that, now I'm calling myself lazy. I'm still doing that, right, man? You being lazy. But when we had spoke to the minister, his testimony gave us a testimony. He said, man, every time I see you, you working. I've never seen you one day when you wasn't working. That was his testimony. So then who was this guy? Who was this other fella saying, you lazy? When the Messiah is saying, every time I've never met you one day, brother, and you weren't working. And it's like, well, why did he say that to me? You know, so he's always trying to help, you know, and just the way that you shared this class was just was like a cool shower on a hot day. So I just want to say I really appreciate you, brother. And you are singular. You're singular. You got something for real. So we thank Allah for you.
Praise due to Allah, brother.
Indeed.
When you said every time I see you, I'm thinking, well, how many times has the minister see you that you don't know that he's looking?
Brother. he made several references. I had to go back and say, wait a minute, how do you know that? He gave me an instruction. My wife was sitting right with me. He was talking to both. He said, look at what you have done for so many with so little. And the way he said it, it was like full of meaning. It was full of meaning, right? And it arrested me because I was thinking about something else. And he told me, look, put your attention units on this. Look at this, right? And it was like, I started looking, and it was like, well, wait a minute. How did he know those two circumstances for so many with just a little bit, you know? So yeah, it's he looks at the believers. He looks at his enemies too, you know, but, you know, sometimes we can be going along and think we just a little person. Everybody don't get an opportunity to speak with him. And you would think that because you're not speaking with him, that you're not on his mind. But like Allah is he's raising him, but has raised him into a level of mastery. So when he's in the Swan Song and he's saying that Allah has made me master of the condition and master of the circumstance. You know, now this is a man like, now we don't know anybody else like that, right? So like, yeah, you know, so like never think that you're off the table. You know, he's tuning in on you. And what I discovered, and I want to share this, not because it's me, but as an example of what I'm saying for you. Any one of the believers who may feel like, you know, because we're not at the table all the time, that we're out of sight, out of mind. I had a call from his daughter one day. He said he had came out of prayer and he asked about me. And it happened twice. And he asked, hey, anybody seen brother or heard or woo? It's like, whoa. And she said, yeah, don't ever think that just because you ain't, that you off the table, brother. You know, that's for the common believer, you know, just for the common believer. You would be sitting there thinking, you know, this, maybe this, that, or the other. I know it happens to me like that sometimes. And this man is praying for you because he's tuned in on you and he feels what you're going through. And he'll be saying a prayer for Sister Charlotte or Sister Patricia or Brother Tim or Brother Lukeman or any of the other believers on here. He will be praying for you. You know, that like he doesn't have another life. This is what he's devoted to, is the nation and the believers in it, getting us safely across the river to the other side. You know, so just like he knows that Satan is very aware of even the little believers, so is God that called you into belief. You know, so I just wanted to put that out there too.
Yes, sir, bro. Well, thank you very much for your words, Brother Scott, and your work, your sacrifice, and make sure you send the greetings to the Queen. And I hope everything is doing well with your family.
Yes, sir. We're working with it, brother.
Yeah. So, well, family, let me be the first to apologize for taking up so much of your time. I will strive to do better. It's almost 9 o'clock. So please excuse me for going way over time. God willing, we will meet Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. We're going to use the mathematics side of our teachings to go into the reactive mind. That'll be 10 a.m. As soon as this downloads, I will post it on the YouTube channel so that you can go back at your earliest convenience and re-study. I ask the believers that when you watch the videos, please leave comments so that I can improve. I'm trying to evolve something on a larger scale. So leave your comments as you're going through the tech. By all means, if you have any misunderstood or you need some help, send me an email. I'd be more than happy to take time out to respond back as far as any questions you might have on the tech. And with that being said and done, I will go ahead and we will close it out. Would anyone like to do the honors, closing us out in prayer?
I didn't get your YouTube.
Oh, it's called Supreme Wisdom Meets Supreme Technology. I will also send you the link in the email I'm going to send to you once I get off camera. But if you go to Supreme Wisdom Meets Supreme Technology, we have about maybe 5 or 6 videos up. I currently have over 100 videos, 100 Zoom meetings. So I'm trying to organize something to make all this information available to whomever wants to study it, so that we're prepared for the dark hour that is in front of us. I mean, we're probably in it now, but if you're following the minister's instructions, you don't feel the sting as much as those that don't have it. But I'll make sure you get all the information you need, Brother Allen.
Yes, sir.
All right. And we will go ahead and close it out. Brother Ahmad, can you do us the honors?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Attention, prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Beneficent, most merciful Master of this day of judgment and requital in which we all live. Thee alone do we serve, thee alone do we beseech for aid. Guide us on the straight path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path of those upon whom wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray after they have heard thy teaching, and say he, Allah, is one. Allah is he of whom nothing or no one is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He neither begets nor is he begotten, and there are none like unto Allah. I bear witness that Allah came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and I bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted Christ, and that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the Messiah, mercy and grace in the form of a wonderful counselor. In these names we pray. Ameen.
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 Assalamu alaikum, family. Love you. Look forward to seeing us again.
Walaikum salam. Thank you,
Wa
sir.
alaikum salam.
Too, brother.
Thank you.
brother.
Stay on your studies. Stay on your studies.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sir.